hypertension, excessive smoking, or dyslipidemia in the form of the. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Yeah. In the form of the dyslipidemia, in the form of the high triglycerides or the LDL and decreased HDL, all these things can activate or can injure the endothelium, and by activation of the cytokines, chemokines, and coagulation factors, okay, also the lymphocyte macrophage activation, which recruit all the smooth muscle cell to come in. Okay, so the migration of the smooth muscle cells as well as the fat to be deposited into the intima. So subintimal accumulation of the fat, also the migration of the smooth muscle into that, and also the intercellular matrix. All these things, they going to form the fibrofatty plaque within the intima. Okay, so this is not going to be complete. Initially, it's not occluding completely, but this plaque, okay, this is going to be a partial occlusion. This is the reason for the stable angina. So whenever the patient gets stressed or any, we talked about the demand and the supply and all. No? So this is going to be the part of the supply with occlusion. Whereas the demand in the form of the increase, either the patient having accelerated hypertension or patient having emotional stress or any kind of, tachycardia, all those things, where the patient cannot meet, okay, the supply, we are going to have the angina. So that will be stable and it will give time for us to investigate and manage that will be better. Whereas when the plaque is ruptured, okay, the plaque is the cap is being opened up, okay, under stress, then it is going to invade the platelets as well as the fibrin, so which all going to make the complete thrombus. So that complete thrombus, you may all know the branches of the coronary arteries, okay. So one of the thing, it is going to be occluded either single vessel or multiple vessel according to the portion of the heart, portion of the ventricle or the thing, the chambers it's supplied, is going to have the problem, and it's going to end up in the complications. All we are going to go through that later. Okay, so we don't want that to happen. So we are just getting into the pathophysiology and the other management step by step. Okay, so this is the how the thing is we have been talking about. This is how it is going to progress. So initial endothelial and microvascular dysfunction, and which is going to end up in we already said, altered metabolism. And but in ECG, when you say, there will be T inversion. That's what it mentioned, abnormal ST segment. And we already saw the infarction and myocardial fibrosis. So whenever there is an injury, there's a remodeling is going to happen. So the fibrin deposition, so myocardial fibrosis. So when there is a myocardial fibrosis, that ventricle definitely is not going to have the proper contraction. So diastolic dysfunction initially, and later, and with the occlusion again. So the patient will have the segment, the portion of the chamber that's also get decreased perfusion. So regional wall motion abnormality. So the patient with the combination of the diastolic dysfunction, regional wall motion abnormality, later they are going to end up in the systolic dysfunction. So that is going to be a mechanical failure of the heart. So this is basically what is happening with the pathology of that. Okay, so this is in nutshell about the stable angina, unstable angina, NSTEMI, NSTEMI. So you can go through that one by one. So the first thing is about the pathology. So what we have been talking, yeah. So the initial thing is when the patient has have partial occlusion, it's a stable plaque. The plaque is, you can see the smooth outlining of the plaque, which is just the narrowing of the artery. That's all. So atherosclerotic plaque, it's causing the decreased lumen. So when there is an increased demand which cannot be, met with the supply, patient is having angina, and but again, so they have the adequate blood flow, adequate time also. When you see the ECG, it is normal, and you do the angio and further management can be, they can take time. Whereas in unstable angina, you just see that one where there is a rupture of the smooth lining of the plaque. So where it is, there is the trapping of the platelets and all fibrins and all. So there's going to be not complete, but it will be partial occlusion of the vessel. So patient is going to have angina, but there is no necrosis. So in the ECG, you see the patient is having T inversion. So the initial is the component of the ECG. First is the P wave, followed by the QRS, The tall one is the R and the negative component is the S, and then which is followed by the T wave. So that is not isoelectric line. It is not above the line. It is down. So there is a ST elevation is there, and we can also sometimes you can see ST depression also in the unstable. So these are all the component of the patient is having the angina actually. So okay. So this is unstable angina. What is unstable is the rest angina and angina happening, frequently. Okay, so that is all the pain happening for more time. So this should be addressed immediately. And the third one is the non-NSTEMI actually. There is no ST elevation, but still this is posing a much problem now. There is a infarct now. You can see that one. This is also similar to ST elevation, but the ECG there is no changes at all, and the infarct is minimal. It is not complete necrosis. Okay, so if it is not treated, if the problem is not addressed, it may end up in the transmural infarct. So this is called the NSTEMI, and which can also brought up not only by the ECG and echo, we can pick up by the cardiac biomarkers in the form of the troponin that also will be elevated in the NSTEMI. Okay, so that is the thing differentiating the non-ST segment elevation MI from the unstable angina. And the last one is the STEMI, it is a ST segment elevation, where there is a complete occlusion marked by it's a complete transmural infarct and resulting in the necrosis of the myocardium, and which is also reflected in the ECG. You can see the ST elevation. Okay, the concavity of the ST elevation so much. Okay, it's a hyperacute. Otherwise, we call this a hyperacute T elevation. Where else you get the T elevation, by the way? What is the other condition?
Hypokalemia, ma'am.
Very good. Hyperkalemia. Okay. Hyperkalemia. And then acute pericarditis also sometimes we can have. Okay. That we have to differentiate. That's okay. So here, so the ST elevation is there. And again, that is supported by when you do the troponin, it will be elevated. And the echo, of course, will show the segmental abnormalities or wall motion abnormalities will be there. So, okay. So this is what going to happen. We are going to see one by one. So with the angina, this initial 2-3 slides will be with the stable angina only. Here the clinical picture, most common is the males over the age of 50 and female more than 60. But it is changing nowadays also. But it's a common thing is routine presentation is usually 50 years, more than 50 years in males and females 60 years. And they'll have the pain, heavy pain actually following any stress or emotional episodes. Okay. And the patient will have typical crescendo, decrescendo pain. And of course, it will be radiating to the shoulder. They say usually left shoulder, but they can also have the shoulder radiating pain to the bilateral shoulders. Okay. So patient might have the other peripheral artery disease presenting with the claudication and history of TIA. Risk factors we have to look for. Okay. So this is what it is. And very, very important thing is on examination, not only verifying checking all the peripheral pulses and looking for the markers of the atherosclerosis in the form of the arcus senilis, xanthelasma, and tuberous xanthoma. Very important thing is for aortic aneurysm. It's not the bruit. What else you check clinically for the aortic dissection? Anybody? Aortic dissection. What?
Pain referred to the scapula.
Yeah, very good. That is the history, isn't it? Examination.
An ejection.
Suprasternal pulsation, ma'am.
என்னப்பா இன்னொரு தடவை சொல்லுங்க.
Suprasternal pulsations.
Suprasternal pulsation for aneurysm, but even sometimes kinked arteries also can cause like that. But typical thing for the aortic dissection, blood pressure. Okay, both hands. There will be variation between the right and the left. Very, very important thing. Why should we look for the aortic dissection in myocardial infarction? Anybody? So what is the management for the myocardial infarction, ST segment elevation MI?
Aspirin, clopidogrel, and
The point. Aspirin, clopidogrel is all for even for angina we can give. Okay. So it's especially for the stable angina we give. For MI.
for CABG.
Coronary intervention.
என்னப்பா
PCI, ma'am, percutaneous coronary intervention.
You are a cardiologist, ma. So we are not having that is very important thing. I appreciate with you. But before that patient is not in hypotension and they are in the initial 30 minutes of the chest pain, starting of the chest pain.
Nitrates.
Wow, you're not coming to the thing. How do you lyse the clot? This is a clot we are talking.
Thrombolysis.
Yeah, what do you give for thrombolysis?
Tenecteplase, streptokinase.
Streptokinase.
So when the patient is already in aortic dissection, there is the double lumen. There is a blood is again leaking into the intima. Okay, will you give thrombolysis in the aortic dissection? Is it thrombolysis? Can you give in aortic dissection?
No, ma'am.
You should not. Okay, that is the reason. Okay, so we cannot differentiate. It's very difficult when the patient is having chest pain. Okay, not all the pain will be coming with the pain radiating between the shearing pain between the shoulders and all scalp between the blades of the scapula. Okay, so we have to differentiate. We have to have the doubt because the treatment is different for the aortic dissection. Okay, so you have to check the BP at the same time do the echo and CT. CT will give the true picture. Urgent CT should be there. Okay, so where thrombolysis will be very damaging. Okay, so that is not the treatment for the aortic dissection. So please understand that and go for it. And then auscultation rule out. Any aortic diseases can cause the stenosis and regurgitation. That picture will be there. Okay, so again, when this stable angina, you ask for the investigation, for the metabolic factors, for the diabetes mellitus and other, for the thyroid function, renal parameters you should be asking for. In the chest X-ray, basically it is the LVH, concentric LVH. The apex will be lifting off the diaphragm. So that is very typical for the chest X-ray. And the cardiomegaly also the patient can have, you look for it. Then CRP is an independent risk factor for the ischemic heart disease if it is elevated. Okay, the ECG in the stable angina, okay, not much of changes. When you see the ECG, it's a normal sinus rhythm, not much of the changes you can learn. It's a non-specific. There is no point, there is no ST depression or inversion. Only in the lead 3, you can see something like isoelectric line. It's not atypical. So these patients have to be submitted for the angio to find out the heart disease. Okay, which artery is affected. This is particularly for the stable angina. Okay, so this is what we are going to opt for the coronary arteriography for the stable angina. Okay, and so to rule out this is basically these people, if it is not followed up properly, another 2 to 3 months, they are the high risk individuals for the MI. That is the reason. Okay. So the acute coronary, so that is for the stable angina. For the acute coronary syndrome, we have been talking about. Okay, so this is the one presentation. We all see that. Okay, so unstable angina and your non-segment, non-ST elevation, segment elevation MI. All this will have the typical chest pain. But ST elevation MI, what is happening in the presentation? What else they can come with? Why somebody is doing CPR to the patient? Anybody?
Shock, ma'am.
Pardon?
Shock.
Shock, we can start at the inotropic support. For the shock, will you start the CPR?
Ma'am, sorry, ma'am. Atrial fibrillation, arrhythmia.
Yeah, arrest. So cardiac arrest.
Cardiac arrest.
Due to the arrhythmias, isn't it? So the patient can have the arrhythmia also. That's what it is said. So very difficult. And then ECG, you see the changes. We discussed about that. Troponins, these things. Okay, just go ahead. And pathophysiology, we already said actually. So complete occlusion for the I mean, with the end STEMI, there is an occlusion, but there is only subendocardial infarct alone is there, whereas complete infarct is only with the STEMI, ST segment elevation MI. Okay, so here, so we already discussed what are the, again, there will be some overlap will be there, just done with this. Okay, in unstable angina, we already said when the pain is occurring more than 10 minutes and the prolonged pain, then compared to the previous episodes, now the duration of pain is more and pain at rest and then recent onset within 2 weeks. These are the very important points pointing towards the unstable angina. And clinically, patient will have typical Levine sign, and they'll be having excessive sweating. Patient will have cold, clammy skin, and on examination they can have the sick sinus syndrome. That is brady or tachy. Picture could be the tachyarrhythmia, could be the ECG will be showing ST segment. Okay, so this is again showing the same thing. T wave inversion. Okay. So cardiac markers, very important thing is the cardiac troponins, T and I. Okay, so it's more sensitive and specific, and which increase in 8 to 12 hours. Very important thing. So when the patient come with the chest pain, if you take within 2 hours, it may not be elevated. So you have to do the serial, like how you do the serial ECG. You have to repeat after 12 hours. Then you can pick up the markers also could be elevated. CKMB, but it is less specific. Basically, we all know what is troponin, where it is. This troponin released from the necrosed muscle come across the lymphatic system into the venous system, and when you take the blood, you can pick up the troponin. Okay. So basically, when the patient come with the chest pain, this what for the risk stratification, they should be admitted. They put on the monitor. Okay, predict the STEMI. Okay, that is the reason. Basically, they should be at least for 48 to 72 hours, they should be attached to the monitor, right? So regarding the treatment strategy, here, see when you will be posted to the medical board, you will see many patients is unstable angina. Okay, most of the patient will say chest pain. What is this case? Unstable angina. So what best you can give to the patient is, because already MI patients will be in the cardiology ward. Please understand that. Okay, for the benefit of the thrombolysis and for if they need emergency PCI or CABG, for that benefit they will be in the cardiology ward. But most of the cases medical board admitted are unstable angina. So take it from me. And so what is the treatment strategy for them? So explain the patient what they are having and reassure them. Okay, so this patient will be followed up. They'll be closely monitored. Okay, so they'll have the good life also. So assure them actually. And identify and treat the aggravating condition. As we said earlier, what is the reason for that? Diabetes, hypertension, associated aortic valve diseases, obesity, and anemia. All these things should be addressed. And activities. Okay, so all of them ask the patient, don't go for walking or running in the early morning or in the cold environment. So see, the treatment, not only the medical management, it should be holistic. Okay, so we have to give some idea about the performing the isotonic exercises and regarding what task they can go ahead. Okay, so you have to go through that. Then about the risk factors, always. Okay, so there are, we all know there are non-modifiable factors and modifiable risk factors. Non-modifiable risk factors, we can't do much regarding the age, gender, genetic factors, race and ethnicity. We should be aware, that's all. Whereas modifiable risk factors in the form of hypertension, smoking, diabetes, physical inactivity, obesity, dyslipidemia, these all should be addressed to, and whatever steps we can and we should do and to reduce the risk. So what is the drug? What are the drugs we are going to give to this patient? Okay, so main and first and foremost is actually give when they are having the pain, we have to relieve the pain. So we have to give the nitrates either in the form of the sublingual or oral tablets. Okay, sublingual, which is 0.3 to the triglyceryl nitrate, which is the 0.3 to 0.6 milligram. You can repeat for at least 3 doses. You can repeat over every 15 minutes. Basically, the action is due to the systemic venodilatation. So decreasing the preload. Okay, so reducing the LDL, end diastolic volume. That's what it is. Decreasing the preload. Only thing is when the patient is already having hypotension, you check the BP. If the patient is hypotensive, don't give nitrates. Beware of that. Okay, and second, then they can be continued on the either the isosorbate dinitrate or isosorbate mononitrate according to the dose. Dinitrate means 10 to 40 milligram TDS according to that, and mononitrate 20 milligram PD. So go up to 40 milligram. That's one thing. Regarding then there can be started the beta blockers also. But contraindication when the patient has got bradycardia, heart failure, hypotension, again, beta blockers is not the. For the heart failure also, you should be very, very careful. Relatively, they use that, but you should be very careful. So basically, the beta blockers reduce the heart rate and decrease the contractility, so that the patient, the demand also will be decreased. So reduce the heart rate, improving the contractility, and decrease the oxygen demand. That's how it does it. And what are all the beta blockers available? Metoprolol, atenolol, and levetolol. We normally use the metoprolol and atenolol. You should know the dose also for them. And third thing is the calcium channel blockers. The calcium channel blockers, again, they should not be prescribed when the patient is having arrhythmia. This also reduces the contractility and also increase the coronary vasodilatation. The drugs available are either dihydropyridines or non-dihydropyridines. Basically, their dihydropyridines are nifedipine and amlodipine, whereas dihydropyridines are diltiazem and verapamil. So please learn the dosage also, but not a big deal actually. Okay. So whereas the Prinzmetal angina, this is, these are structural lesions are there. What happens in Prinzmetal angina? What is that?
And it's coronary vasospasm.
Vasospasm, isn't it? There is no narrowing. It's just going for spasm and then get released. So for that patient, no need for the beta blockers. Okay, please don't give the beta blockers for the variant angina, Prinzmetal angina. Any drugs can cause that kind of spasm. Apart from atherosclerosis, variant angina, we talked about. Any toxins? It's not toxin. If I give clue, you'll find out. Some illicit drug. Cocaine, yes, exactly. Cocaine can cause a vasospasm and sudden cardiac arrest also. Okay, beware of that. So when you get the history, you should ask all these things, mom. Okay. So for the Prinzmetal angina, beta blockers contraindicated. Either nitrates and the calcium channel blockers can be given. So that is about relieving the pain and then improving the contractility. Then, as you said earlier, antiplatelets, aspirin, COX-1 inhibitors. Initial dose is 325 milligram, and they can be maintained on 75 to 100 milligram. Okay, where the aspirin not tolerant, you can start at the clopidogrel, P2Y12 inhibitors. Some people dual antiplatelet also they give. So clopidogrel again 300 to 600 milligram initially, and maintenance dose will be 75 milligram. The other third one is prasugrel. Okay, so prasugrel 10 milligram. So common things you should know commonly. And the other drugs, what they use is ranolazine, nicurandil, ivabrin, which was earlier in the heart failure what we used. So these are the basically acting on the ranolazine acting on the funny current channel and nicurandil on the potassium channel. Okay, these are the other drugs, but common things what we use for the pain relievers, improving the heart, the beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, antiplatelets, of course, is very, very important. So with that, you should be very, you should know all those things. But new drugs coming up, what are the other drugs available also, beware of that. So regarding revascularization, what do you give for the revascularization apart from antiplatelet? What is the anticoagulant?
Aspirin, clopidogrel.
Pardon?
Heparin, ma'am.
Heparin, exactly. So these are the patients where you should start on the heparin. Okay. So the heparin either is an unfractioned heparin or you can give the low molecular weight heparin. Okay. Unfractioned heparin, basically it is 1,000 units per hour continuously, but sometimes it's difficult. That's why we divide into 4 doses, 5,000 units. Okay, every 6th hourly we give. And similarly, otherwise, the enoxaparin, which is a low molecular weight heparin, because if it is unfractioned heparin, they should be monitored by the like how we do for the warfarin PTINR. Here it's a APTT should be there to monitor. For low molecular weight heparin, not necessary to monitor continuously. Here you can be given 1 milligram per kg twice daily. It can be given. Okay, so that I think that slide is missed. I think so. Don't forget that anticoagulation. That is very important thing, right? And then revascularization. How do you do the revascularization? By either the, so everyone know about the PCA. Okay, so when the patient is in shock, okay, so or if they come within 90 minutes, between 30 to 90 minutes when they reach, so they are submitted for the PCA. And again, PCA basically when they do the angio and find out the single vessel disease or double vessel disease, it is difficult. It is easy for them to do the stenting. Whereas when the patient has got multiple, triple vessel disease, then they go for the CABG. So just be aware of what is PCA, what is CABG. Okay, I think. So that is for the unstable angina, and this is for the stable angina. I think here it will be talking about heparin, I think. Yeah. Okay. So the earlier few slides were focusing more on the unstable angina. Here, this is the focus on the non-ST elevation MI. Okay, we know what is the pathophysiology going on here. Okay, so here also the treatment protocol strategy is mainly aimed at reducing the chest pain and the importance about the risk stratification to decrease the treatment modality. Then ECG, we already saw the ECG, so which can pick up 80% of acute coronary syndrome. What will be the ECG changes we have been talking?
ST depression,
Yeah, exactly.
T inversion.
T inversion, exactly. Very good. So again, and after confirming that, we are going to treat the patient. Okay. So ischemia-driven approach. This is what they are doing. So patient should put on the admission, bed rest, continuous ECG monitoring to avoid any arrhythmias, or the patient should not go in for the ST elevation. And the treatment should include anti-anginal, antiplatelets, and anticoagulants. Okay. Then, of course, the initial thing is, if the patient is having SpO2 less than 90, they should be given supplemental oxygen. Never forget that. Okay. And if the patient is in shock, sometimes they need to be intubated or the mechanical ventilation support also, depending upon the patient status. Okay. So we are focusing more on the cardiac alone now. Okay. Right. So regarding the anti-anginal medication, as we said earlier, nitrates. Okay. Either in the form of the triglyceryl nitrate. Okay. Either it is in the sublingual or it is the oral tablet we are going to give. And contraindication is a hypotension. Sometimes if the patient is having, they can present with the pulmonary edema. Okay, so pulmonary edema or severe continuous pain, they can be given infusion also, which is called NTG. Okay, nitroglycerin. Okay, NTG drip, 5 to 10 microgram per minute infusion we give. But very important thing is monitor the BP continuously. Okay, they can suddenly go in for hypotension, we have to stop. Very important thing. Okay, so the nitrate can be given as a sublingual, can be given oral tablet, sometimes even a puff inhalation can be given. So most important thing, when there is a continuous pain or with the hypertension and pulmonary edema, they can be given infusion also. Please be aware of that. Then second thing is the beta blockers. We already said either it's a metoprolol or the atenolol, labetalol, these things also can be advocated. But when the patient is having a block, okay, this is the AV block, we cannot be given complete heart block, beta blockers cannot be used. So we should know the contraindication. We should be familiar with the drug. Then only we know what are the complications or what are the adverse effects we can come across. Then calcium channel blockers, okay, this indication is the acute coronary syndrome and variant angina. There is a principal angina again. So we don't give that in pulmonary edema. We already said for the pulmonary edema we can give the nitrates. Again, beta blockers should not be given in the variant angina. Then the morphine, if the patient is with severe pain, we can give morphine. So the morphine is basically, it is dose is 3 to 5 milligram IV, slow IV. We have to dilute and then give. So the very important problem with morphine is a respiratory depression. So you should get ready with all the support. Unless without that you don't give. And it can be added with the anti-emetic also. Very important side effect is vomiting. So they give always with the domperidone. Okay, so emetic. Okay, so with that only they give. So morphine is the potent drug which control the pain. But beware of the respiratory depression. Then the antiplatelet drug, what we give is the aspirin, which is again 325 milligram earlier, which should be followed by the 75 to 100 milligram per day. Clopidogrel, P2Y12 inhibitors. Other drugs are prasugrel and ticagrelor. Okay, so it will be given in little depth, go through that. Okay, but these drugs have little less side effects. Other antiplatelets like GP2A3B, okay, glycoprotein 2A3B, like abciximab, eftilfimdate, tirofiban. These are also the other drugs. Okay, some of these also may be drug-eluting stent. They use that one. So you have to go through that in depth. Okay, so but commonly what we use here is aspirin and clopidogrel, right? In anticoagulant, we mentioned about that. Okay, unfractionated heparin, we already said 5,000 units bolus, and then it should be followed. Okay. If not heparin, if we can instead we can use the enoxaparin 1 milligram per kg BD. We already mentioned that. Okay. So how do we monitor and follow up the patient? So at least higher incidence of the MI occur within 2 months after the ischemic event. So these patients should be discharged. They should be continued on the dual antiplatelet. What we are talking about, either aspirin, clopidogrel, or whatever the other antiplatelet we mentioned. Beta blockers and statin. Don't forget about the statin. Continue on the statin. If patient elderly or some patients can be put on the AC inhibitors also. Okay, they say actually for the severe LV systolic dysfunction, AC inhibitors also should be started. Of course, the lifestyle modification for the modifiable factors, then adequate follow-up with the cardiac rehab. These are the monitoring and follow-up for the non-ST elevation MI. So this is for that. So the anticoagulation come for the ST elevation, non-ST elevation MI and the unstable angina. So this one slide about the Prinzmetal angina, which is the focal spasm of the epicardial coronary artery with the resultant transmural ischemia. Okay, and LV dysfunction causing non-ST elevation MI. The treatment basically it is and here it leads to ventricular tachycardia and ventricular fibrillation, sometimes end up with the sudden cardiac death. Here the treatment is basically, there is no beta blockers. Other things you can use, nitrates, calcium channel blockers, aspirin, statins, that can be used. Never use the beta blockers in the variant angina. That is the message. Okay. So management of the patient, basically initiate the medical therapy as soon as the patient comes. When they come with the pain, okay. Decrease the demand ischemia. What we mentioned about. Minimize the risk factors. Start on the aspirin. If they are aspirin not tolerant, then you give the clopidogrel. And any high risk measures usually. So when the ejection fraction, when they do the echo, when you see the patient is having ejection fraction less than 40%, okay. So then these patients should be referred for the angio or coronary angiography. Okay, so if the patient has got in the angio, they find a single vessel disease, they do for the PCA, or if the patient is having multi-vessel disease, they assess for the CABG. Okay, so if the patient is stable, actually the EF is better actually, then you continue the medical treatment as we said earlier. Okay, regarding the ST segment elevation MI. ST segment elevation MI, okay, initially they were talking about Q wave and all. Okay, I think when you see the ECG, then next slides you will understand that. Okay, that is basically the Q waves indicates a myocardial necrosis. That's all. So nowadays those terminology are gone actually. So this causes complete coronary obstruction leading to the transmural infarct. We already mentioned that. Okay, so if the transmural infarct goes for necrosis, then the Q wave appears. That's what we have been stressing again and again. Okay, again these are the slides. Already we talked about that. But here, what is the other thing they are stressing upon? When the stenosis is happening, the narrowing of the artery happening over a period of time, it won't cause acute MI because the collaterals develop. But if the patient has have unstable block, it ruptures suddenly, it can cause the complete blockage by causing the transmural infarct. That's what this slide is stressing upon. The vulnerable block and the thrombogenic, all these things. Okay. So see this ECG, okay. So the normal ECG, that's what I earlier mentioned. Then this is acute phase, okay. ST is getting elevated, right? And then as the hours goes by, patients start having the Q wave. So the Q wave is nothing but, so before the R, you can see the Q wave is it's a negative deflection, okay. After 1 to 2 days, again the Q wave is getting deeper. And also the ST elevation also coming to isoelectric line. Slowly it is coming down. And now the T wave, the tall T wave, now it is becoming, you won't say T alone, it's the ST segment. Okay, so now it is ST segment coming to the isoelectric line and the T wave getting inverted. That's what it is happening. So after the few weeks or few months, actually you can see that ECG showing only the Q wave, indicating there is an old infarct. All the other waves are all becoming normal. So the Q wave persists. If sometimes the T wave, ST elevation persistently elevated, that is indicative of the aneurysm. Please understand that. Okay, there are few points regarding that. So, what to say? The third one is called evolved MI. The fourth one. Okay, when there is a Q and the ST becoming isoelectric and T inversion says the patient has got evolved, recent MI. When the patient has got only Q wave, all the other waves normal means is a old MI. That's what it says. Okay, previous infarct. This is basically for the treatment approach. Okay, and this is for the all L1, L2, L3 we've been talking about, ECG. That is going to map up which part of the ventricle is affected. L1 and AVL says lateral wall. L2, L3, AVF for the inferior wall. V1 and V2 for septal and V3 for the V3, V4 for the anterior wall, and the V5, V6 again lateral. So L1, AVL, V5, V6 lateral. Okay. So this again Y means for the which artery it is supplying. For that you should know the which part of the ECG showing the changes. So if the patient has got V1 to V6, he has got the ST elevation. Patient has got the anterior, septal as well as lateral wall also affected. So either patient is having proximal left anterior descending or left main coronary artery is affected. If the patient has got V1, V2 alone showing ST elevation, it shows patient has got the septum involvement alone. So either it could be septal branch of the proximal, the LAD or the proximal LAD. And like that you can go through that. But I want to just stress upon the L2, L3 AVF. Okay. For that it is an inferior wall which is supplied by the right coronary artery. Okay. For this right coronary artery, it also supplies the posterior part of the ventricle. So we have to do the, when you see the L2, L3 AVF, okay, so it is better to do the, look for the, and if the patient is having BP, they have the hypotension, always do the ECG recordings at the posterior wall also, posterior leads also, very important. Okay. So just have a idea of what is what are the leads for which part of the territory and what are the artery. This is just a rough thing, we can go through that. But there is a typical, it's called a Wellens approach, it is called. So by which they can map up the which coronary artery is affected. Of course, we are all going to do the coronary angio to confirm. This is just the work we can do it. Nice work. Okay, so what are the cardiac biomarkers? We already know that the troponin T and I, maybe a short notes. Okay, just go through that. Troponin INT, okay, which is going to be elevated after 12 hours and it can going to stay peak by second 2 to 3 days and it's going to, come down. So CKMB again is also going to increase, but not like a troponin, it's non-selective. Then the other LDH, all those things are there. But main thing is troponin INT. It's very, it's more sensitive and specific as recommended by American Cardiology. So what are the, when the patient complain of chest pain, suggestive of STEMI, what's the pre-hospital care we give to the patient? That's very important. So, because if suddenly we can either go for the sudden arrest, okay, by arrhythmia, or they can develop the pump failure. So we have to pick up quickly. So it should be recognized and prompt treatment should be initiated. That is our idea. Okay. So what are usually the role of the ambulance? Anybody there, or I'm just talking to myself?
We're listening, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Because suddenly I got down. Right. So once they get a call from a person having chest pain, okay, so that ambulance person should communicate to the nearby hospital so that they can deploy the emergency room. ER means emergency room. So that it should communicate, and they also should know which hospital has got the PCI facility. The percutaneous coronary intervention facility is there, and they should reach before 90 minutes. That is better. So the rapid deployment of the ER decision to be taken, that's what it says. So door to needle, door to balloon. Door to needle is nothing but streptokinase or the thrombolytic therapy. That should be within 30 minutes. Door to balloon is the PCA. That should be 90 minutes. At least we should have that timings. Okay. And we have the expert transport. Okay. So we should take the ECG within 10 minutes of the arrival of the patient, right? So which will make us to take the decision quickly, right? So we already said within 30 minutes to prevent the loss of myocardium and relieve the ischemic pain and address the life-threatening complications as we already mentioned, pulmonary edema, hypotension and arrhythmia, okay? So that is more important thing. Okay, so general measures, supplemental oxygen. If the oxygen saturation less than 90, they should be connected to the supportive oxygen and catheter, IV lines. At least two IV lines should be started. Serial ECG for the monitoring, for the progression of the infarction or the arrhythmia, new development of arrhythmia. So if the patient develop VR, what we do? I'm sorry, VF. Ventricular fibrillation, what will you do for this patient?
Defibrillation, ma'am.
Exactly. Okay. So defibrillation. So we should get ready with everything. Okay. So this is another criteria of MI. Forget about that. Right. So these are the main algorithm for the management. Okay. Chest pain. And again, what is the duration of the chest pain in MI?
More than 10 minutes, ma'am.
More than
10 minutes.
no. That is only for unstable angina. For MI, ST segment elevation MI, more than 30 minutes. Okay, so it's more severe, more than 30 minutes. Okay, and you should start on the aspirin, do the ECG, and as we said, the pain relief by the nitroglycerin and morphine. Definitely, you have to give the morphine, but beware of the respiratory depression. Then go for the thrombolysis, fibrolytic, and what are the indication and contraindication? We'll go through that. Right? If the patient is, if the patient have the contraindication, then we have to take the patient for the, or patient is in shock, they could be immediately shifted for the PCA, and that again within 90 minutes. Then that will give the better management for the patient. Okay, and then which is followed by the adjunctive therapies in the form of the heparin, beta blockers, ACE inhibitors, all those things. Okay. So here is the thing actually. So for the thrombolysis, indications, we all know that. Contraindications, absolute contraindication. Any idea?
Bleeding disorders the patient has.
Bleeding disorders, okay. That is again
Instant.
relative. Bleed, absolute.
NSTEM, ma'am. Non-ST elevation.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. Apart from
Aortic
that,
dissection.
And
aortic
previous history of
dissection, right.
stroke, ma'am, intracranial stroke.
There is, so I asked my PG to do that, but he hasn't done that one. He has given totally. So we should have the absolute contraindication and relative contraindication, like pregnancy and the BP less than 180, 110, and all will be relative contraindication. So absolute contraindications are when the patient blood pressure is more than 180, 110, more than 180, 110. Okay, and the patient having the recent stroke in the form of the intracerebral hemorrhage. Okay, within 4 weeks. And then similarly, if the patient had any surgery procedures also. Okay, so I think I am stuck now, right? So just go through that. It is given in the book. Otherwise, I'll Anishwara, sorry, I'll send it later to you so that you can forward to others.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there are few absolute contraindication where you could not give the thing, like we said. Okay, so any recent means there is a duration, I think within 1 month. And then regarding the surgery, and then again it's surgery in the the head only. Okay, and similarly, I mean neurosurgical procedures. Then regarding the aortic dissection and the blood pressure. Whereas other things and all will come relative contraindication when the BP is less than 180, 110, or when the patient is having recent streptokinase infusion also, or when the patient is having bleeding diagnosis, pregnancy, all these things are relative contraindication. Okay, so and the thrombolysis, the improvement with the thrombolysis, the reperfusion can be scored by the TIMI scoring. That's what. Okay, TIMI score is used. What are the common drugs used for the thrombolysis are the fibrinolytic agents are streptokinase. Usually it is 15 lakh units. You give for over 60 minutes. The other drugs are ritaplase, tenecteplase. Just read the dosages. But commonly we use the streptokinase here. Okay. So this very thing, right? So then apart from that, the patient activity should be restricted. Initial, basically they should be admitted. They should not bound to the bed. The diet also salt restricted and fat restricted diet. That's what we say. Yes, and more than that, both unstable angina, the non-ST elevation MI or ST elevation MI, all these things, they should be given stool softness, okay, and the sedation. Why they should be given stool softener?
So they don't strain, ma'am.
They don't strain. So what is the straining will do? Pulmonary embolism.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So there are few patients actually we have come across. So we don't want that to happen. So they should be given the Dulcolax, stool softener, and they also will be given mild sedation in the form of the diazepam or midazolam, okay, benzodiazepines. The tablet form is advisable. That's enough. So when you start working in the ward, you just see to that whether these also added to the patient. That's routine. Then along with the thrombolytic or the fibrinolytic drug, they should be combined with the anticoagulant also, is the unfractioned heparin, which continued for 24 hours. Then it should be followed by the anti-platelet agent. That's what is there, isn't it? Yes, unfractioned heparin should be followed. Usually they start with 1,000 units per hour. Okay, so they can give 4,000 units bolus and then it should be started. Right, I think here is a mistake. Okay, then they should be started again. Sorry, prior discharge, they should be started on the aspirin, clopidogrel, okay, beta blockers, RAS inhibitors. So AC inhibitors, and so we already discussed that. either ACE inhibitors or the angiotensin receptor blocker it should be put on, and also the statins. These are the drugs they should be on. Okay. So the important thing here to notice which patient for the fibrinolytic or the thrombolytic therapy and which patient for the procedure. That is very important thing. And routine the follow-up in the ward should be look for the complications following the MI. So these patients either they have the pump failure or the arrhythmia. Pump failure is a mechanical complications or the arrhythmia. So when the patient is having the infarction, they'll have the impact contractility of the ventricle. So either does the impact contractility will force the patient, force the ventricle to develop a thrombus. Okay, so which can end up in a embolism to other peripheral vessels also. Even a stroke can happen. And second thing is, one is for the thrombus formation. Second is because of the dysfunction, the patient can have the hypoperfusion. So they can end up in the cardiogenic shock. And third is the cardiac failure. Of course, we know that. So these are the complications developing because of the impact contractility. And when the patient is having, the other complications will be papillary muscle infarction. So end up in the mitral regurgitation. Also ventricular septal rupture. So ventricular septal rupture can happen. So, free wall rupture can happen, which can end up in the cardiac tamponing. These are all mechanical complications where patient develop. Electrical complications are the arrhythmia. Okay. And third thing is Dressler syndrome. What is Dressler syndrome? Anybody?
Post-MI pericarditis, ma'am.
Yeah, exactly. They can have the pericarditis, the pain, chest pain, and fever. Okay. So, but it is you can treat them with the NSAID. Okay, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. Patient respond to that. So please be aware of that. That can also be a small short note will be there. Okay. So the treatment for the myocardial infarction. So initial thing is drug therapy. Initially when they come, what are the things we should give regarding the pain relief and the comforting with the oxygen and the antiplatelet, the agent. What are the things? Main thing is anti-anginal treatment and oxygen. Then regarding the thrombolytic therapy, we should be very careful. We should know that much indication and contraindication. And when the contraindication for thrombolysis is there, we should go for the percutaneous coronary intervention or CABG. That cardiologist will know about that. Okay. So what are the other new strategies? They're talking about embryonic stem cells or some stem cell management. They are under research. So probably instead of doing all this, thrombolytic or cumbersome procedures, they might come with a stem cell treatment. We never know. Okay. So to preserve the myocardium. So that is in nutshell. I have not completed fully. So just the glimpses. So you have to go through that page by page. And the one thing what I feel I missed it is the indication contraindication. I forward it to you. But I expect you to go through that in depth about the ischemic heart disease and myocardial infarction. So this is in nutshell about the take-home message, which already been explained earlier. Okay. Thank you very much. Any doubts? Anishwara?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Can we close?
Yes, ma'am. We can close.
Okay. Any doubts?
Very vast topic, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, can we screen for the atherosclerosis even before the angina sets in, ma'am?
Yeah, for atherosclerosis means they have the calcium deposition. Okay, they are looking into in the coronary artery itself. So what is for the atherosclerosis, how we screen luminal for atherosclerosis. Yeah. Before the angina sets in, how do you look for these are the patients prone for the atherosclerosis, for the angina. See, apart from the many steps, comment dissipation luminal narrowing, so it's echo, isn't it? Yeah. But there are actually, yes, very good question, Ma. Actually, there are so many dissertation our PG is also doing regarding the peripheral vessel screening, okay, and by even the echo and echo you can pick up. Okay, and also the small steps like the brachial and ankle index. Yes. Okay, ankle brachial index ABA. These things will give a clue. Okay, for
Oh,
the
okay, ma'am.
okay, right.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, very good. Okay, ma. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. பண்ணிக்கிறாங்களா? சரி. க்ளோஸ் பண்ணிடலாம். பரவாயில்ல, ஏதோ படிச்சத கேள்வி
Very interesting topic.
என்னென்ன இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் டெப்த்ல அதுக்கு போய் படிக்கிறோம். நமக்கு இது ஜஸ்ட் லைட்டா
I mean, in the classes it should reach everyone. That is the main goal.
இது போகும்னு நினைக்கிறேன். ஓரளவுக்கு அதாவது ஒரு கிளாரிட்டி.
படிக்கிற பசங்க அவங்க லைக் ஆர்டிகல் வரைக்கும் எடுத்து படிக்கிற பசங்க.
இப்ப நம்ம என்ன தெரியுமா சொல்றேன், ரொம்ப நம்ம வந்து இப்போ இவங்க கேட்குறாங்க ஹவு டு பிக் அப் அத்ரோஸ்க்ளரோசிஸ் திங்னா, ஸோ டூயிங் த உங்களோட பிளட் லெவல் அது இது டிஸ்லிபிடேமியா இது பார்க்கறது, அப்புறம் கால்சியம் பிளாக் நிறைய ஒருத்தர் பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தாங்க. ஓவர் தி கொரோனரி ஆர்டரிஸ் மேல டெபாசிஷன் பார்க்கறதெல்லாம் இருக்கு. அதை வச்சு அதுதான் சொல்லிட்டு இருந்தது. அண்ட் தி இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் திங் இஸ் ஒரு பேஷண்ட் செஸ்ட் பெயின் வந்தா அட்லீஸ்ட் தே ஷுட் நாட் மிஸ் தி அஞ்சைனா.
இந்த 250 பேர்ல அட்லீஸ்ட் 100 of them are going to go to PHCs.
அதுதான் இம்பார்ட்டன்ட். அங்க அது பொறுப்பு தே ஷுட் பிக் அப் பண்ணிட்டு. ஓகே, நீ கேட்டுட்டு இருந்தியா? ஆனா கண்டினியூஸா போயிட்டு இருந்துச்சு. ஒரே பிரச்சனையே நல்லா ஒழுங்கா வந்துருச்சு. எங்கேயுமே எங்கேயும் நிறுத்தல. ஓரளவுக்கு
அவங்க சப்ஸ்கிரைப் பண்ணிருக்காங்க. எல்லாம் 1 hourல கட் ஆயிடும்.
Thank you. Okay, मैं சாப்பிட்டியா? मैं तो சாப்பிட்ட போறேன். சாப்பிட்டு ஓகே. தேங்க்ஸ். இது
கோமி வாங்கிட்டு வா சிஸ்னா கொடுத்துறேன்.
கொடுத்துறியா?
ஓகே.
சரியா கொடுத்துறேன் சொல்லி. காலையில எக்ஸாம் இருந்தது. ஓகே, ஒன்னும் இஷ்யூஸ் இல்ல கீழே. இன்னைக்கு ட்ரிபிள் வந்து அதான் நான் காலையில நான் வந்துச்சு. நான் இப்படி மேலே ஏறி வந்தேன். செகண்ட்ல 8 o'clock நான் வந்தேன். டீன் அப்படியே லவ்ஸ் முடிச்சுட்டு போனார். மேலே 3rd floor போயிட்டேன். அதுக்காக போய் நிற்கணும் நான் வந்துட்டேன்.